Welcome back to Obscure Echoes, the horror podcast where real stories get real dark. Tonight's terrifying tale was submitted anonymously and takes us deep into the shadows of the Day of the Dead Ouija board sessions gone wrong. What started as an innocent curiosity turned into a walking nightmare. Sulfur, shadows, and something that marked an entire family forever. If you're into scary stories, paranormal, and real life horror that stays with you, this one will haunt you long after it's over. Let's dive in. Turn down the lights and don't play with what you don't understand. I just discovered your channel and I wanted to share my stories, or rather my neighbors, since they were the ones that were mostly affected by all of this. I hope you can share my story in your videos. If you do, please don't mention my name. I changed my friend's name for privacy. Everything started on November 1st, 2021, during the Day of the Dead. Some of my neighbors have the habit of seeking paranormal experiences, like visiting cemeteries or exploring places late at night. Others prefer to watch horror movies. That night, Lisa invited me to play the Ouija board with her and her other friends. We were curious to see what it felt like to communicate with beings from another world, if that was even possible. I refused because I heard stories of people claiming to have contact demons that refused to leave. I told Lisa not to do it because these things don't always end well. She didn't listen. She went ahead with the game and I stayed just to observe what would happen, but I never played. They set the classic atmosphere for playing the Ouija board, lights off, a few candles lit, several people sat around the table and started asking the usual questions. Everything seemed fine, and it looked like nothing was going to happen. The planchette moved slightly. My neighbors and their friends looked at each other if they was trying to spell something, but it never did completely. They kept playing. It was already late when I decided to go home. Others left as well. I kept wondering if everything has gone well, if they had summoned a spirit. Everything seemed normal at the time. On the third day after they played the Ouija board, the family began to feel heavy atmosphere in the house. They also started hearing footsteps in different areas of the house, like the kitchen, the patio, and other rooms. That same night, around 2 or 3 in the morning, Lisa got out of bed because she heard noises coming from the kitchen. She went to check it out, but didn't see anyone. Her mother also woke up because she had heard the same noises. She went into the kitchen and found Lisa standing there, staring at the door completely motionless. She described the scene as terrifying. Lisa looked at like a mannequin. She was not moving. She didn't even seem to be breathing. Her skin was pale, and her expression was serious, almost lifeless. Despite her fear, her mother shook Lisa and asked what she was doing in the kitchen so late. Later, she told us that at that moment, she didn't feel like she was looking at her daughter anymore. Lisa slowly turned her head. Her mother grabbed her hand, and it was ice cold. She asked her why she was so cold, but Lisa didn't respond. Then, without saying anything, Lisa walked away from the kitchen, stood in front of her parents' bedroom, and stared directly at her father. Her mother was already terrified because of her strange behavior. Lisa stood there for 2 whole minutes, silently staring at her father, then suddenly turned around and went back to bed. She did nothing else. Her parents were left in shock, unable to understand what had just happened. Moments later, Lisa started crying and screaming. Her parents rushed into her room thinking something that had happened. But when they got there, they found her alone, sobbing. She told them that she had once seen the shadow of a man in her room. He had been slowly approaching her. The strangest part was that she couldn't move. She couldn't only watch as he got closer. Then suddenly, everything went dark. When she opened her eyes, she was already sitting on her bed, crying. She had no memory of what had happened before that moment. She only remembered getting up, hearing a noise in the kitchen, and then seeing the shadow. Her parents comforted her until she fell asleep. The next morning, they told her about what had happened in the kitchen, that she had stood motionless like a mannequin, staring at nothing. She had no recollection of it. That entire day, she kept thinking about what her parents told her and wondering why she couldn't remember any of it. The day passed normally, but the next day, the family began noticing a strong smell. Later, they would describe the smell of sulfur. They searched for the source, and eventually, it was coming from an old stone sink they had outside. At first, they thought it was something normal since they have not cleaned it in years. They decided to empty it out and clean it. That was when they found a wooden box with a strange symbol on the lid. It looked like an asterisk or a star. Inside the box, there was a glass bottle filled with green liquid. When they opened it, the smell was unbearable, like a rotting animal. Floating in the liquid was a wooden stake piercing a heart that looked like it belonged to a chicken. Wrapped around it was a black ribbon along with an old photograph of the family. The photo showed a man in his 40s, a woman in the same age, a girl around 9 or 10, and a boy who looked about 5 to 7 years old. There were X marks drawn in red paint over each of their faces, but the man had multiple X's all over his body. After that, my neighbors decided to store the box in a safe place because they wanted to consult someone, a priest or a spiritual expert, to understand if this had anything to do with the strange events in their house. That night, things got worse. Now they were hearing children's laughter. The smell of sulfur spread through the house. They heard a woman crying and growls that sounded like a dog. Lisa kept crying in her room. She started hearing a young woman's voice whispering, "I don't want to go with Daddy." A boy's voice followed saying, "Daddy is bad." She began screaming, telling them to leave her alone. That night, her parents found a small toy car and a ball on the floor. They were objects that had never been seen before. Lisa didn't know anything about them. The next morning, they went to church and begged the priest for help. And that was when the real horror began. That night, around 4 in the morning, I heard banging on my wall. This wall is directly next to my neighbor's house, but for me to hear them, they would have to hit it hard. Usually I never hear voices from their house unless they're very loud. At first I ignored them. Then I heard the screaming of a woman coming from their house. The banging got louder and faster, as if someone or something was trying to break through the wall. With everything I had already heard about the strange things happening in their house, I became terrified. I couldn't sleep in my room, so I moved to the living room and eventually managed to fall asleep. The next morning, I asked my neighbor if something had happened during the night. I told her what I had heard. She told me that Lisa had acted strangely again, just like the first time in the kitchen. But this time she got up, walked directly to where they stored the wooden box with the strange items inside. The family hid it in a place she had never seen. It was not visible, and yet she had no way of knowing where it was. Yet she still found it. Her mother watched in silence as Lisa stood there, staring at the box, then started whispering, "I did it." She repeated this over and over. Suddenly, a small toy car that they had found in her room started rolling on its own towards the kitchen. Lisa turned and walked after it. When she reached to the kitchen, she dropped to the floor and started crying uncontrollably. Hearing her cries, her father woke up and ran to check on her. The moment he entered the kitchen, he let out a terrifying scream and ran out. His wife, alarmed by his reaction, also ran to the kitchen. That was when she saw Lisa's face. Her expression changed completely. She had a grotesque grin that did not belong to a young girl. She looked like something else entirely. In a voice that was deep and distorted, nothing like her own, she told her mother, "Hi, Mommy." Then she started laughing a terrifying, demonic laugh. Her mother knew that at that moment, whatever was in their house had taken over Lisa. The kitchen door slammed shut on its own. Her mother panicked because Lisa was standing several feet away from the door. Her parents locked themselves in their room. Moments later, they heard a man's voice just outside the door laughing in a way that sent Lisa's mother into a panic attack. Her father finally told his wife why he had screamed when he saw Lisa. He said that when he entered the kitchen, he had never seen a man standing next to her. It was the same man from the photograph, the one who had the red X marks drawn on his body. He was pale, almost unnaturally white, with completely black eyes, and he was staring directly at him. Then, from the other side of the door, they heard voices. Children's voices whispering, "Are you going to stay? Do you want to play?" Nothing made sense. Lisa's mother couldn't take it anymore. The fear, the heavy atmosphere, the unbearable smell of sulfur. She lost consciousness and passed out. A few minutes later, Lisa's father heard a knock on the door. It was Lisa. She said in a calm, sweet voice, "Why don't you come out? I'm better now. I'm with the children. The man is gone." But Lisa's father didn't open the door. Something inside him told him that it was not really Lisa. He gathered his courage and said, "I know you're not Lisa. Where is she? Who are you? What do you want?" A long silence followed. Then suddenly Lisa screamed, "Daddy!" He panicked. He thought she was being attacked. He grabbed the door handle, but at first it wouldn't budge. After several tries, he managed to open it and rushed into her room. Lisa was sitting on the bed, shaking. She told him that her back hurt, like something had burned her. When he checked, he saw deep scratches across her skin. But there was one scratch that scared him the most. It was the same symbol that was carved on the wooden box. Lisa kept crying. Aside from the pain, she told him just before she woke up, she saw the silhouette of the same man approaching her. She couldn't move. She could only watch as he got closer. That night, the priest finally came to their house. The neighbors invited several people to help, including my father and me. My mother was too afraid to come out, but she would pray from our house. As soon as the priest entered the house, Lisa started acting strange again. She screamed, "Get out!" She ran out the house, covering her ears and shouting in a voice that was clearly not hers. It sounded as if she was forcing her throat to make unnatural sounds. My father and a few others helped restrain her. Meanwhile, the priest began to pray. I swear to you, I have never seen anything like what I saw that night. I felt like something straight out of a horror movie. I had not experienced it myself, I would have not believed it. Lisa yelled out things that made no sense. She shouted, "I did it. I hate them. He told me to do that." She was also spoken in language none of us understood. The priest continued the exorcism. At one point, footsteps could be heard all over the house. The priest sprinkled holy water on the wooden box, the toy car, the ball, and most importantly, the Ouija board they had used. He said they needed to burn everything. That night, they lit a fire and destroyed it all. The moments the flames consumed the objects, the smell of sulfur returned, stronger than ever. And then we all heard it, cries and screams of anguish. They sounded like being burned along with the items. The fire flickered in unnatural shapes. I thought I was imagining it, but it was bizarre. At the time, we felt relief. It was as if a nightmare was finally coming to an end. The next morning, everything felt different. The air was lighter. The house no longer felt heavy. The smell of sulfur was gone. The whispers, the footsteps, the voices, everything stopped. Even the mark on Lisa's back had started to heal. But there was one last horrifying detail. A few days later, while her mother was changing clothes, she noticed something in the mirror. She had the same symbol on her back. And when she checked her husband, he had it too. They never noticed it before. It was as if their entire family had been marked by something. Even now, they're not sure what really happened. They are not believers in the supernatural, but after this, they started going to church. They also went to therapy because the experience was too much for them. I believe that night that they played the Ouija, they awakened something that had been dormanted in their home. Later, they discovered the photograph they had found belonged to the previous family that had lived there. The father of that family had murdered them all. It was believed that he has been influenced by witchcraft. This is my story. I know it's hard to believe, but if I have not been through it along with my neighbors, I would not believe it either. But I swear to you, it's real.